All right. Following the Cross Plains Plan Commission of September 6th. To order, roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Thusius,
Here.
Commissioner Duquette,
Here.
Commissioner Brocious,
Here.
Trustee Bjorklund,
Here.
Trustee Kettlebuller,
Here.
and Village President Linko.
Here. Please stand for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Liberty and justice for all. Okay. We're at public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the Plan Commission on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the Plan Commission encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. Does anybody like to speak on anything? Obviously, you can wait for the public hearing if you're here to speak at the public hearing. All right, hearing none, we'll go to regular business. Number 1, approval of the minutes from the July 5th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from July 5th.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Second.
We have that. Thank you.
Been a while since you've been on.
Yeah, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. All right, number 2, regarding the conditional use permit approval of specific implementation plan at 2010 Main Street. We'll do the public hearing first. Do I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
So.
Second.
Do I have a motion and a second to open up the public hearing? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. All right. Anybody would like to speak at the public hearing? Okay. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. B, discussion and possible action regarding the specific implementation plan and conditional use permit application for 2010 Main Street outdoor commercial use. Just so everybody knows, we are not able to take action tonight because state law requires 2 meetings. And this is our first. So we will listen to everything and either have a special meeting or put it on the agenda. Judy.
Is there a time frame or what's the reason for that?
I was informed at the last meeting from Sonia and our attorney that state statute requires us to have 2 meetings.
In the ordinance that we currently.
And is it like a 2-week second meeting or like, what's the time
There's
frame?
no
that-
time frame.
So you could almost have it tomorrow if you wanted.
Yes. I just wanted to put that ahead of time, so everybody kind of knows. You guys want to explain? I don't know if all the members know what your plans are. I don't, yeah, because it hasn't been you. You've been at staff, that's.
So basically, we own the empty lot next to the coffee shop. And our intention was to make it into kind of a community park area. That's what we've been using for the last year. The Lions have some events there, Trout Days is there. Chamber of Commerce uses it for tree lighting. And part of it is to be able to make it a little bit nicer. We're gonna fence the property in and enclose it with the black wrought iron fence. If we had approval, we would put a small stage in there and then have some musical people be able to play music there. Katie Del Rip had expressed interest in possibly leasing it to allow them to extend their area, which would include a liquor license for them to extend into that area so they could have events in there as well. I think regardless of whether that happened, we would move forward with what we wanted to do as far as imposing it and and making it a nice area. We're not doing a lot of, we aren't planning to do a lot of events on it or anything like that. It's basically just an open space for the community. In a nutshell.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Bill?
So I'm curious about the liquor license. First of all, we're limited to how many liquor licenses.
No, here's what I'll explain. What she would be doing is expanding the premise of her liquor license. So it's not a new liquor license. If she would get into a lease agreement with that, she can have that area as part of the premise of her liquor license.
And when he says she, he means Katie Brown.
No,
Yeah, so it's not a new license.
so does that mean that anybody can go in that park and drink alcohol? If
No, it actually restricts that because that is now her premise, and with that liquor license, people cannot bring in alcohol. They can only buy from her.
Right now, they could drink there.
Yes, yeah, until it becomes,
okay,
and it's up to them if they want people to drink. Right now, they're not asking for a liquor license, right? So that's what's kind of the discussion we have. You do a liquor license, then it restricts people from bringing in, alcohol.
okay.
But right now, if I wanted to go sit there and have my own cooler, I could sit there.
Well, you need permission. It's not a park. It's not a park, so I don't want to say yes to that. You would have to get permission. They could say, yes, you can bring your cooler and drink on our property. I don't have a problem with that. Yes, they could do that. But not anybody can drink there. It's not open to the public right now. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the clarifications I was looking for. You guys had just mentioned, that the property would be sort of generally open to the public unless used for these events. And you thought would be to sign it, saying a public welcome, or how would you know that? Or if somebody's like, how would they get permission from you? Like, when you say public welcome, and it's not yet a public property, we're just trying to discern what would make this, what would make a difference to people who didn't know it, if they were walking around.
Well, we'd look for some guidance from you from that, but right now, if people just show up there and instead of picnic tables and they have ice cream, it's just there, and because of people coming there for trout days and other events, I think they just assume. And until someone tells them other, we certainly could put signage up. You know, if it came to a lease agreement, then I guess that would be up to those guys to decide if they want to put some signage up. But I would assume that they'll have some kind of sign there, but if this doesn't go through and we decide to leave it like it is, I don't know.
I think you would want to have some signage there because you want to control. You don't want people camping for 3 weeks there in the middle of that. So there should be a signage that this is private property. You need to have permission or authorization. And then obviously the enforcement stuff on your side. Judy?
Well, that's what I was just thinking about a private property, and I thought, well, I wouldn't want one, because they are welcoming. You know, so that's a tough call. If you do private property, then people are gonna feel like they can't go there, but they're welcoming people to sit there and watch these or ice cream, so that's kind of a tough call.
Well, it's not for me because I'm kind of biased from law enforcement in Madison. You have a heck of a time getting rid of people if they've established themselves. You have to literally go through the eviction process, which is extremely expensive. So I'm looking more into prevent. I hear what you're saying, but all of a sudden somebody sets up a tent camp there. This is, I can tell you from, it's gonna be a lot of headaches for them.
My thought would be just simply public welcome here in the rules. That's it.
As long as they know that they still have control. That's the main thing you gotta do. Just like, I'll give you some advice too. Don't let your kid say that's his private room because then he can control who goes in and out of that. You always tell them the house belongs to us.
But they will have a fence fully encompassing the entire.
Right,
length of the
I think there's some
property.
visual things. I just don't want it to turn into it's a very nice thing, so I think it's always better to be more protective and you don't have to enforce anything, you know.
And the sign doesn't have to be large, you can make it this big, it's sure, and not that anyone would read it, but it's there.
Don't even have it close to.
The video will enforce it.
Yeah, what, you know, the gates and stuff, and even if you know, there could be a list of things you can do, no overnight camping, or, you know, there's things you can do to kind of prevent things from going
Hours.
south on you, yeah. All right, any other questions? I guess the question, oh, Kevin, you had a question? Is this something you really want to move on quickly? I mean, I could check to see if we can pull the group back together Monday or something like that, just for this. Because I feel sorry that we've dragged it out, because.
The only thing it would be nice to get the fence up this fall yet, if we could do that. I mean, the problem is the 10-week lead time on the materials, so we're already into November. And if we drag it out much longer, then it won't happen until May. So it'd be nice to not lose a month.
Sure. Yep, I hear that. What are people's thoughts on pulling something together next week?
I'm gone next week.
Okay. Is anybody else gone, or
I'd be fine with it.
how about anybody else? Everybody kind of. So maybe we can do something, because we don't need, I think, just a simple majority to pass it.
And it doesn't have to go to board.
No, not right now. We'll be talking about that.
Not if you have to get it.
I could not do Tuesday.
Okay. How about, does Wednesday work for people?
Next Wednesday is the 14th. There's two, I've got a sustainability meeting and the joint review board meeting.
Oh, yeah, I got that too.
Yeah,
What time is that at?
6 and 7 respectively. Those two.
5:30.
You mentioned-
To be there, right?
Yeah, it would be helpful. Is anybody, I guess I'm trying to get a poll. Is anybody objecting to this?
So this is just the SIP, it's not a liquor license issue?
No, we're not talking,
I was
no.
gonna say that their letter had the wrong address on the request for the expansion of the premises, so I wanted to make sure that wasn't an issue.
Whose letter was
From
that?
Creekside.
That's Creekside.
saying
Oh,
to
address.
expand the premises, they
Oh.
like 2012 instead of 2010.
Oh, yeah, that would be something.
One of those stupid things that cause problems.
So, yeah, what are people's feelings? I mean, I'm for it.
I guess the question I have, if you did a lease, would that be an exclusive lease just to that business, so that sort of lock out, would that lock out like truck bays or anyone else from using it?
No, that'd all be part of the deal. The Lions could use it for fundraisers, the Trolley's could use it for community tree lighting. It would just be under their control as far as, basically for their events, if they want to have music or if they want to have a liquor license there, the org would expand to that. You know, if the lease doesn't go through, we'll still do this, and if, then we just wouldn't have those events. But the public events are still very important to us, which is actually why we're doing it.
Yeah, I'd say these folks are looking to do a quasi public space in downtown at virtually no cost to the village. I can't help but support it, and they will support businesses in town. Yes.
All right. Do you have anything going Thursday?
You mentioned Monday, you took Monday off the plate right away?
I thought I heard someone that couldn't make Monday.
Well, Bill can't make it.
Well, he can't make the whole week.
I can't make the whole week. Yeah.
Did I not? Did I?
Tuesday was bad for me, Monday's okay.
Okay.
I can't make Monday through Wednesday, so,
Okay.
but I mean, if you don't need Bill and I then,
Well, Thursday, how does that work?
looks good.
No,
No?
live doodle.
All right.
How about the next Monday?
Yeah,
I could,
Then I can be here.
all right, let's,
can we do any of it Zoom? Can we do a Zoom meeting?
no,
No.
you have to be in person.
Oh, we just need a quorum, right? Or
Yeah, we just need a quorum.
5 would be nice. but
Yeah, we need a minimum of 4.
I can do Tuesday.
I should go, I mean, I can make most of next week.
I can make Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday was bad.
Okay, Wednesday. How many hands can make Wednesday?
Wednesday's the one that.
Oh, that's,
But, well,
I got two, I already have two meetings.
It's only gonna take 25 seconds.
Can we do it at 5:30? Just do it early,
yeah,
before the meeting, so that shouldn't take long, so I don't think anyone's gonna argue against.
no. Can people do it, our meeting for the joint is what, 6?
6.
Okay, can we do it at 5? Can anybody not make it at 5? You can't make it at 5?
Wednesday? Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't be. Friday.
Oh.
5:30?
We can't meet on Wednesday.
We can't.
We're talking.
Next Wednesday.
Mondays, so
You're out on.
Who knows on Monday? Is everybody else good on Monday?
Okay,
Can we do it later this week?
that's what I want. Okay, how about Thursday of this week?
You need 3 days for open meeting laws.
No, 24 hours.
I'm good Thursday.
I'm good Thursday.
So am I.
I'm not.
Thursday.
as far as I know.
Promise short, yes.
It'll be short. We're not adding anything to it.
At what time?
Well, what would work? Do you want to go later, 7 o'clock? Would that earlier? Okay.
Would it help if we brought beer?
All right, what time Thursday?
Thursday, they're really, really bad.
5.
5:30?
5:30? 5:30 for everybody?
All right, so 5:30
This Thursday.
Thursday.
I
So
really appreciate you guys bringing that together for me. Thank you.
I just have a question.
Yeah,
Make sure, for this meeting, the public hearing is published in the newspaper.
It was.
We're holding, okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, so you covered your
Classic,
public
okay.
hearing and then you're good to go. You can have a meeting. Yeah.
All righty, well then we'll see people on Thursday. All right. Very good. All right, let's go to 3, discussion and possible action. Lenny Ziegler property, town of Berry, CFM, hyphen ETJ approval. Who's here to want to talk about that?
I'm Lenny Ziegler.
Okay, Lenny,
They-
why don't you just give us a quick rundown and
I own the farm, the buildings and everything by, First Farm on the right coming out of town on P. I'm just trying to sell the house off and a building and keep the rest of it. So I'm trying to get it rezoned. I'm selling it to my son. And then down the line, maybe he'll buy the rest of the buildings, but at this point, I would like to sell him the house, and so I'm having it rezoned.
this has gone through the town of Berry already?
I was gone for 2 weeks, I don't know.
Okay.
The surveyor said it was going forward at the time. When
Okay,
I last spoke with them, when he notified me, they had already notified the town that it was going through their process.
I had just got the call or a voicemail saying that we're meeting on it tonight and maybe I'd like to go.
All right, Sonia, is there any problem with the order in events?
No.
Okay,
Do we need a motion?
we do.
I'll make the motion to approve, and for it's the Lenny Ziegler property, town of Berry, CSM.
Yep. Do I have- All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We didn't have anything on the future plan map. That's the thing I forgot to cross check.
No. All right, not hearing any discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. So move. So it'll go to the board meeting at the end of the month. And we need to have 6 people there. You all know that, don't we? All right, number 4. Discussion, new village development philosophy. I don't know if it's new. This should be just more of a village development, philosophy. I can give a little background on this. So while this does not directly, it indirectly relates to the Sundance, development. We have worked very, very hard to try to get municipal water to that development. And at this point, it's cost prohibitive for the developer and the infrastructure that is needed on the village side. We're just not at the point that we absolutely need it, so we're not at the point to make that investment. So the greater picture is that what happens if you let the development go forward with, which is, we're at the stage now where it'd be municipal sewer, but wells. And both Ron and Keel are here for the developer side, from the village side, since I've been one to keep this on the table, is that if you allow this development to go, you're pretty much locking all the developments that go to the north of that. And when we calculated it, when we were looking at other costs, you're talking about a total of about 398 lots would all be, you wouldn't be able to run water even if we were ready, because this development is right there. And then you got to look at future developments. The PI property has some that would, some of their properties in the same zone, so they would be in the same boat. So I'm guessing they would be asking for the same thing. So we as a village have to kind of look at what we want to do in the future and how that kind of looks. We're kind of at that crossroads. So I'll let Ron and Keel give their side of it and their information, so we can at least have the discussion. Nothing will be decided tonight. This is going to be a very, it's not one that I'm going to rush through, because it's extremely important, and the decision we make here basically affects the village for a very, very long time. Do you guys want to come up to the table then?
Yeah.
Great.
I can do take a quick background and then,
Is the mic turned on?
oh, I'm sorry.
Just hit that button and make sure it's good. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, I can do a quick background and then maybe get into Ron, depending on how much detail you want to talk about, but you know, maybe that's also just for the future meetings. I think the background on where we're at just today is that the last big water study that was done in the village, you know, it affects this issue and it affects our development, and it was done as a result of our development plans. Was in 2008, and the village has been recently doing, you know, renewed water studies, and that was when we got involved again to look at this issue of municipal water versus wells, in an effort to look at that issue again and see if we were, you know, what had changed. Long story short, while we are a large development in Zone 3, the village has a lot of other Zone 3 land that's developable. Not just us. We happen to be a large chunk, but by no means the only chunk. And I think it just became very clear as we were going through and looking at logistics and costs and things like that, that the decision that the village would make with regard to our development is going to be a big influence on other developments in Zone 3, especially. So realistically, it just seems like it's a bigger question than just us pushing forward a plan that works for our development. That inevitably, we're asking the village to make a decision about future developments in Zone 3. And can that be done in the context of just our request? Probably not. It's probably a discussion between the village and its staff, and some sort of determination that requires some future casting. You know, our property happens to be in the comprehensive plan for residential development, but really there's a lot of other property in a similar boat. I think it, and I think the village agrees that it makes sense to look at this more holistically and come up with some comprehensive determination. That's not just gonna be us presenting something and the village saying yes or no. Really, it's probably the village talking with staff, looking at especially engineering, especially, land use, and saying, what are we looking at for the future of development in zone 3 in the village? What can we live with? What can we request? What's realistic financially and logistically? And then, yeah, we can be a test case then, but there's a bigger discussion. But it, again, and it affects our development and it affects other. You know, and I don't know if we need to go into more detail than that, or if that's.
Well, I think, like I say, this is gonna be discussed at a lot of committees and stuff that, so I think this is your opportunity to give as much information, so this commission can then take and look at, the developer side, because that's clearly one that we should be looking at, right? You're a major stakeholder, the village is a major stakeholder, the residents are a major stakeholder, so we need to get that perspective. So I'm gonna leave that up to you guys on how much you wanna give us, how much information that you think is relevant for them to know. You can always come back. This is not something that's good, like I say, we're gonna do 1 or 2 times. There's a bunch of research that needs to happen. And discussion. And I'll be honest with you, I've thought about it once we talked about this. I believe we gotta do a public hearing or a public forum. I really believe this is a major decision for the village, so we need to get that input, and that would probably be something that this committee would do, or commission would do, and set that up. So the more information you give, I think the better. Now, we can talk, we don't need to get down into the sizing of the piping and the pressure and all. I don't think we need to get all down into that detail, but I'm gonna leave that up to you. I don't wanna be seen as cutting you short at all. So it's what you feel is important at the beginning stages of this discussion.
I'd like to add a few comments.
Sure.
So overall, Cross Plains is very unique. It's built in a valley, as you know. So in the valley, the zone 1 works. As soon as you move up into the hills, you get into a higher pressure zone, and you need a whole another system. It's really what it amounts to. And if you do it over here, and the PI land is over here, and you want to do it again, you really can't connect the two. So going to a well system, to me, gives the village tremendous freedom. Where you can now say, hey, we can easily expand into this area. They don't have to spend $5 million on, or the developer doesn't have to spend $5 million on a water system that the village then has to maintain year after year. So there's that to think about. And then memory is frail and fleeting. So as I was looking through our paperwork, this has been going on for years. So I looked back and realized in 2017, this area, Sundance, was added to the urban service area. And the county, the regional planning commission approved it with wells. So at that time, they were okay with that, and they're a pretty strict board. And at the same time, the village actually changed their comp plan to allow it. And I had forgotten that. And I assume that is still on the books. Doesn't mean you have to approve something, but it means that right now the comp plan says municipal sewer with private wells. So it's that, 5 years ago, the people here thought, hey, this is feasible. So I wanted to get that in. But yeah, as you pointed out, Jay, the economics of this just do not work. And if you want to continue to expand into those areas currently in your comprehensive plan, I think you need to look at a different philosophy.
All right, does anybody have questions for Bill? And then Seth.
So I've been at this since you guys started wanting to build. And I know we spent a year talking about wells and water. And what we had decided, I think in 17 or 18, was the majority of the homes were gonna be on city water, city sewer, and those backlots, the ones that we couldn't get water to, we were gonna put wells on. Does that ring a bell to you?
No. What I recall from that period was there were a few lots that were too low for sewer. And we were gonna pump those to the sewer main, but they were all gonna be on wells. Because if you do a water system up there, you can serve every lot. Then elevation up there doesn't matter so much. It's not like sewer that has to grab and flow. So I think that's what you may have been thinking.
Okay.
So I have Seth,
Don't recall exactly where I heard this, but one question is if we go with wells and something happens where they get toxins or polluted somehow, is the village required to then connect water to all the properties at village's expense?
Yeah, and that's been Jay's concern as well. Our attorney, Buck Sweeney, who does a lot of municipal work, has researched this, and he could not find any Wisconsin case law that proved absolutely that municipality would have to do that. And then I've also talked to the well experts who say everybody in Dane County is drawing on a private well is drawing from the same aquifer. So if somebody gets contaminated, it's going to be widespread, but it just isn't happening. We have a great water supply. The DNR well requirements now are better than ever as far as casing, preventing things from getting in the well, etc. So we don't have concerns there. I don't know if the village still would. Jay would.
yeah, here's the thing, I can pull up, anybody can pull this up, I think southern Wisconsin. Contamination of private wells is like 67%. Well, it's all the same water, obviously, wells don't go as deep as municipal wells, so you get contamination from surface and from the farm fields and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't wanna argue facts here, I think that's some of the research we have to do, but like I say, it seems like every 6 months there's an article on how many wells are contaminated with all this stuff that's out there. Nitrates and whatever, bacteria and, you know, but I hear what you're saying. So that would be, obviously, that is one of the things we need to make sure we have a real solid handle on. Todd, go ahead.
So back to the wells. If my memory serves me correctly, we wanted a possibility of putting a municipal well up there. And you guys ran the numbers, and I think you came up with like 375 lots had to be put up on that particular location. And at that time, we determined it wasn't what we wanted to have high density development up there.
Way back. Yeah.
This is the very beginning.
Yep.
So we came up with the compromise of the wells up there, and it was on all the homes but they all had to be connected to sewer. No one was going to be allowed to have a septic system. So that's where that came in, because I don't believe it was feasible for anyone, even at 300 some odd lots, to put a municipal well up there. And I said we didn't want it at the time, so that's why we compromised that. And that's when we changed this to adjust.
Yeah, and I think both, there's a legal issue or legal determination that needs to be made, because that question that you have brought up needs to be addressed, right? It's a risk. It's a risk assessment to say, okay, well, how likely are we to be on the hook for anything? And then there's a financial determination, right? So we have a large, it's about 120 some acres. there's a fair number of folks up there who could come in with developments smaller from 20 acres to. And down from there and up from, but, there's a financial feasibility, right? So if it's not feasible for 100 lots or 300 lots or whatever, then it's probably not gonna be quite feasible for the smaller development. That being said, it's just undeniable. It's like, you're not gonna take our word for it when we make a determination to say, yeah, well, of course, we check with our lawyer and say, what's your assessment of the legal risk? But for the village to be able to say, well, this doesn't just apply to this development, because realistically, what you allow for this development will probably apply to everything else in that higher pressures on its document. There's no way to do that without the village objectively answering that question for itself. And that involves, like you said, essentially commission, other stakeholders, public hearings, and staff. And not just discussing our development, but this bigger picture. The village has a lot of developable land in the next 50 years that's up in this pressure zone. What is our plan? What are we gonna do about it? Let's make some determinations to say, draw some lines and say this versus this. And then we'll come in for sure from our development perspective and say, well, here's, we can't sell lots at $175,000 a piece or whatever, right? If that's our development cost, so we can look at that and say, okay, well, let's think of how we can modify our requirements, but the requirements are gonna go beyond our development. We can't do that.
Kevin?
The number of homes you mentioned that were proposed in zone 3 was 3 something?
Well, no, what we did is, because we were at
Yeah.
one point looking at putting a reservoir, because we talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
needing to build one. So we took the landowners that are up there that have already shown an interest. And Ron did a calculation, I think we could get 398 up on top there, up to where the road is, where Weber's second land starts.
Thank you. What's the proposed now in development? That number?
For Sundance,
Yeah.
I think we have 116 lots, including Wrestler.
Okay. Well, I think the village made a lot of recent decisions based on the future potential of Sundance or development up there, including well 3. We looked at it and made decisions based on that, looked at the zones, various zones with the engineers, and said, we're making a decision on sort of our current water supply and then future water supply. And, one of the things, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't one of the things that we looked at with the well 3, and Jay, you probably know this best, was who was gonna help pay off that, what future residents would help pay off that.
Well, part of
Water.
the well 3 was done off of a study that was done in '98. And they're the ones, that was the study that did the research, found the location and stuff. What we did was,
Financial stuff.
yeah, the finance, what we did is when we did the borrowing, we calculated how many new lots would be hooking up to water. And we had the impact fee on those lots. So that's where you're talking about where those are. And I could not remember the
So, and then I
number.
assume though that if Sundance were to go to wells, they would be absolved from impact fees toward water hookup.
At this, my guess would be the same as you. I guess we could, but I think you have to justify the impact fee, and I don't think you can justify an impact fee if they're not using the service. That would be my guess. I'm not an attorney, so.
That would be a good question to add to
Yeah.
just think the finances and part of where I'm going with it, that's in my last one where I'll finish this, in all is, when the village approved the plat, at the time, we approved it with what? With what water supply? at the time?
Wells.
Well,
What are you saying?
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, we did.
right?
Yeah.
They're twins,
Yeah, we
right?
did.
No, that was with wells,
Yeah.
all private wells.
Right. And then, right, and I think what came, I think there was kind of a change of philosophy, and the sticking point would have been the annexation because of of the numbers of votes that you need. So then we went back to the drawing board to look to see if there was a feasible. We came up with, a booster, I think is the term. So we worked very hard to see if that works. And the bottom line, the booster would work. It works. The difference is who's paying for it. If we make the developer pay for it, then it jacks it up. The village could choose to put the booster in, and then they would not have to, charge. But those were things that were the options that are out there. So it's,
Go with individual, so they have like, the options that are out there now, break it down for me, are wells on each house, right? All homes have their own well, or a well and storage.
no, I think we actually agreed that there'd be 2 houses per well, right? Isn't that?
That's another option.
That's an option. The option is to put the reservoir in a municipal well up there. There's the booster that we looked at. The other option I tried, we looked at it is putting the infrastructure in, but not spending the money for the booster. So having the pipes there, so if the wells go bad, then we aren't out all the money of digging up roads and putting in. We've looked at a lot of options out there. The question is, those options are feasible if the village pays for some of it. The developer is clear how we've been running it, is it would be the developer. They can't make the numbers work on the options that we discussed at this point. Would you agree with that?
Correct.
So there's been a lot of discussions, a lot of options, and those are the things, to me, we have to talk about.
Yeah.
You'd
see them all.
Yeah, so,
Going back a long time, I seem to recall when the discussion for was a reservoir up there, that also required things like pressure reducers for other parts of the system, kind of at the bottom of the hills, so like my faucets don't blow off and stuff. Is that kind of cost factor?
that could be, I remember that discussion, but that's if we kept it all in zone 1. But if you made a separate zone, help me, I'm thinking I'm starting out with a separate zone, then you don't have that concern because you're not hooking in.
So it would be, if you did a reservoir or something up there, it would only basically serve that development, and anything else up there, it wouldn't actually be connected to the rest of the.
I think they're connected, but
Only through the booster. So you are correct. It really is its own separate system.
Yeah, and because, and just following off of what Ron said, you've also got some free lands on the other side of the valley, which would be its own infrastructure. And this infrastructure, the booster, the wells can come later, technically, but even a booster and a reservoir, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars. So each one of these systems is a big stumbling block, where to provide municipal water is a big piece of infrastructure. And it's potentially 2 big pieces of infrastructure on each side of that.
But just so you know, and I think Kevin will remember when we were talking about the impact fees, if you remember, we were discussing, should we have one for the reservoir, because our engineers are saying we're gonna need one. But the question is, it would have forced us to do something within 8 years, and we didn't want to get tied to that. So we chose not to do the impact fee for reservoirs, because once you do that, it starts the clock. So there is going to be a need at some point for a reservoir, probably within the decade of the village, according to our engineers. Because they want to do a zone 2.
It still wouldn't be zone 3.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you looked at the number of lots that could fit up to like the turnaround by.
Yeah, behind Robert's house there. I think that's how far you went, right?
Right, so that if there was future development north of there, realistically, that could also tie into a well reservoir system up there.
Oh, yeah.
Is there an option to, if the village were to front some of this money, then, cost recovery from future developments, or is there a time limit on that?
Well, that's definitely something we talked about. Yeah, like I say, there are options out there. The question is, who's paying for what? And that's that's where we're at, right? Wouldn't you agree? You know, right now, the village has been pretty solid because that's been kind of our policy that developer costs pay for that to start with, and then we keep it running after that, we take over, so. But there was, and we talked about actually them running through that, just like we did with Creek Crossing, they have the same thing. There's some recovery there of certain things, scenic valleys the same way. You know, they were required to put in bigger pipes than they need. And if there's a development that goes and uses that, then they get a cost recovery. So that has been a tool that we definitely have used. And we currently are using. Yeah, like I say, this is, gonna be a really good discussion, and it sounds kind of easy of yes or no, but it's not. There's a lot of different options out there and combinations of options to make everything work. So I guess tonight was just to introduce you guys to this topic, and then we will be moving forward with this as we move through. And so I thank you guys for coming, because you definitely gave us the perspective from the developer side, and I think that obviously is very important. I would imagine all developers would be probably saying the same thing.
Does somebody have anything to add at this moment?
Oh,
Thanks for asking. I don't at this time until we do like a deeper dive into the land use plan and, how much other land this would affect, for example, of what other developable land there is without the constraints. Other than that, it's largely that financial and engineering question.
good. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And we'll keep you informed when this is on and what parts. I think what I'll be doing is probably breaking it up. Just too big of a topic just to do it as like we did tonight. This was a good overview, but now we gotta break it down and talk about each one. And we'll keep you informed.
We'll see.
Thank you. All right, the last one, discussion and possible action, new village hall / police station zoning. Everybody knows we closed on it on August 25th, so it's ours now. So thanks for everybody that helped with that. And
I didn't hear it.
I saw it on the real estate transfer tax website. That's just.
you did. Oh, well, it just happened to be there. So in the newsletter, I thought, maybe I guess, yeah, we didn't
It
have the
happened too
August
fast,
meeting, right? Yeah, okay. Well, we did. We closed on it on 1 o'clock on August 25th. So the lot is ours, and they saw all staff already cut down the high weeds and stuff. So that's good news. We'll be moving forward. The only other thing is we went through, if anybody had any additional things that we should be considering what could be used there, that'll be important. Staff, we are going to visit DeForest City Hall next Friday, a week from this Friday. The importance on that is they are doing the same thing. They have one large community room that they run their elections, they run their board meetings, they run just about every court, the court. So it'll be a good thing to see how they work everything, and also what they would do different now that they have it to make that stuff smoother. So we're still moving forward with that. So that's kind of where we're at with that right now. I guess that's all I can say right now.
They have a jail in there too?
No, their police department is separate. So we're only going there to look, I know you're joking, but they have a kind of a campus. Yeah. So, but the main thing for me is we've looked at 2 police stations. So now we're looking at a city hall, and I like this because everything that they use their community room is what we're going to. So it'll be very interesting to see how it looks and how it's designed and the flow, and any feedback that we can get on what they would do different is always very helpful. That's all I have, unless someone else has something to say on this. All right, do I have I'm sorry.
Did we get an offer on this? Is that fine too?
We are working,
Working.
we are, the counter offer, I don't know if we can talk about that, but. Cause we didn't do that out of full session, but now we will. Yes, there's been an offer to purchase this building. We are in the process of countering it and getting the price.
Oh. So you're waiting for the appraisal?
No, I'm waiting for the attorney to get everything clear everything. On what we asked.
Does that happen after the move or in? between?
Yeah, no, it's after. It's basically after we vacate this building.
Lease back,
Huh?
lease back,
No,
just simple
simple.
title, one done, all right?
When we're out of here, so there's no risk for the village.
The Library did that.
Yeah, no, it's very solid. There's little risk for the village. Yeah, no, it'll work. All righty. All right, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. Great. All right. We should give it to them.
So Thursday at 5:30?
Yes, Thursday, 5:30. And we are